Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Oh my goodness, sorry for this. I just got new glasses and was trying them on. I'm Natali. I update just to recap, I went to community college in California for 3 years, and then I transferred to the University of Michigan as a material science and engineering student. And I oh have it's just been really hectic. So I decided that I will be making a bunch of videos today. Yay, that means content. I know it's a bit late in terms of like increasing chances unless you're applying this year, which means you still have a lot of time to do a lot of things. So someone actually asked me, hey, can you give a video on how do you improve your chances of getting into schools? So another recap, I applied to one private, two out of state, well, one private out of state, and then two out of state schools, and then five schools within California. And I got into most of them, got into like 5 out of 7. So I'm just gonna go through what I've observed about getting into, let's say, UCs first, and then I'm gonna go into how I think that the state schools and out of states, so like Georgia Tech and Michigan, kind of admitted their students, and then go into Boston University and maybe the requirements a little bit. So let's start with the UCs. Basically, the year that I was going through it, like the transfer process, I noticed that they actually really cared about GPA versus the previous year. They didn't care as much. But when I say like don't care as much, it really depends on your major. So for example, if you are in a lot of like language and science and arts majors, and they kind of do care about your GPA more. They want it to be higher. If you're in STEM, they seem to give a little bit of a leeway, but they still preferred it to be higher. Essentially, like the previous year to me, I knew people who had gotten C's in some of their STEM classes, and they were admitted to the top universities in California. But then for my year, they kind of cared more about your GPA and didn't want you to have any C's. Like I did not have any C's. But I still didn't get into some of the schools. I think the UCs definitely want your GPA there because they kind of want you to get out really quickly. That's what it seems like for people who are there. They prefer if you don't stay longer unless you absolutely have to for either mental health reasons or for the fact that you're doing like a double major. But each UC is like their own. For example, I applied to UCSD as a nano engineering major, and I think because it was pretty new and there weren't that many people trying to get in, it was easier to get in. Of course, having any classes that they require for their major done while you're at community college is the best way to get in because it means you've completed all your lower division coursework, so you don't have to do sophomore classes again. You don't have to spend extra time there doing those classes. So essentially, like, GPA is important. Also because UCs, as I've stressed before, are research-heavy schools. If you have any chances of doing research while you're at community college, feel free to do it. And when I talk about research, I don't mean like, oh, we need to be in a lab 24/7. I'm talking about like you can do literature research. I did 2 different literature research projects, and I presented them at like Berkeley and UCI and then Pomona. And that looks good in an application. So just find a topic you're interested in and sort of relate it to maybe your major or something that you would really love to do in the future and put that on your application. Like figure out a problem that you had. So for example, one of the things that I did was electric cars and their economic and environmental sustainability versus like gasoline powered cars. And then I tried to like come up with a conclusion of what was actually the most sustainable. And then the other one was US and ways to recycling. So I did like a breakdown of how each state or like each I did a breakdown of social economic status and how that relates to recycling and how the state or like county can cater to their population's economic status to recycling, if that makes sense. So essentially, like, it doesn't really need to do with your major, just to show that you're passionate about something that you are interested in, you know? So that in itself shows that you're going to be really willing to put in work and like do really well while you're at school or like make use of the campus resources. So for the out-of-state school, like for example, like Michigan and Georgia Tech, I think that when I was on their website, they really, really emphasized like all-rounded students, and they wanted their students to be really, really passionate about the school as well as like what they're actually going to be doing and studying, and they really wanted you to like have clear goals in some ways of how you're going to use their resources. So for Michigan, in my essays, I put in like I took the time to really research about the school and like what exactly they offer that other schools didn't offer. So for example, they have like a multidisciplinary program, which I ended up not doing because of like coursework reasons, but essentially like that program to me was really interesting because I don't like when people kind of pigeonhole you. I really like when like they make things overlap and like realize that you can combine different majors as well as different like topics and sections and engineering together. So I wrote about that and how like I wanted to make use of that, or how I found it really useful for me. And then I talked about like the diversity motto in my essay as well, and kind of mentioned like specific programs that I personally thought would be really useful to me because of my passion and because of my goals. For Georgia Tech, I think that again, like having the fact that I did like the research, and then I like mentioned how I would specifically use their entrepreneurship program, or like how I would use Georgia Tech's resources to push something that I was trying to work on further. Really, really helped. Let's see what else there is. Okay, so also when you're in community college, there's multiple ways you can get involved with things on and off your campus. So there's like research for one, there are like clubs that you could join, and even if it's nothing to do with your major, that's completely fine because people do have interests that are completely different from their majors. But like for example, I found a way to run a hackathon kind of remotely. I also tried to start something. So honestly, like if you're in tech, for example, like don't be scared to look at like places outside of your state to like get involved with something, like for example running a hackathon, but also like research RUs. I found one that was catered to community college students, and I applied for a bunch of them, and I kind of got not waitlisted, like shortlisted for some, but because of like I didn't take organic chemistry and stuff like that, I didn't get in. So like don't be scared to like look outside your state. Like literally use Google as much as you can to see what is out there for you to help organize. There's a bunch of Facebook groups of like things that maybe be interesting. So like women in tech, or like tech stuff, or maybe even like biology stuff, or like meetups on your like UC's campuses, or sometimes talks are in your area. So do like use Google and completely like Google any like conferences or stuff like that. Sometimes you can even get them paid for, depending on the conference. I think that's about it. But honestly, like when you're writing your essays, especially to out-of-state schools that are more focused on like well-roundedness, emphasize your passions. Emphasize how you have chosen to push forward your passions. For those of you who are working and going to school and can't really get involved in as much, I would highly recommend like literature research, just because that is on something you can do in your own time. You just have to find a mentor, because that shows like initiative and it doesn't take as much work as you think. So that's definitely something that I would highly recommend. If you're into like art, your portfolio matters so much. Passion projects, I feel like, really push you forward, because that shows your dedication to something that you're really interested in. For the UCs, unfortunately, because they're so competitive, your GPA does kind of matter. Above a 3.5 is always preferred, but it also depends on the people in your year, which sucks. But try to keep your grades up as much as possible. Don't overload yourself, and try to just have fun, get involved, talk to like the honors program counselor, maybe if you're in honors, talk to counselors, reach out to people. Of course, I try to respond to comments. I'm so sorry, I've been so bad about it. But I plan to film like my transfer experience right after this, so I'll talk more about that in the next video. Bye! Let me know if you have any questions.